All right, so let's kick this section off by talking about some vocabulary. So our first definition is integers. So integers are a set of positive whole numbers their opposites and zero. So I think you know what positive whole numbers mean and what zero means. So the only definition we might be unsure of is what opposites mean. So opposites are two numbers that are the same, distance from zero. So two numbers that are the same distance from zero on a number line but in opposite directions. Ooh. You know, when you're just writing away and you lose where your pen is. It's the worst. Okay, so opposites, two numbers that are the same distance from zero on a number line, but in opposite directions. All right, so let's look at that. Let's look at example 1. So example 1, we want to find the opposite of -8. So on the number line, -8's right here. You need to figure out how far away is that from zero. Because remember, it's the distance from zero. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 8 places away from zero. So going 8 in the opposite direction will land us at 8. So the opposite of -8 is 8. Okay. So now let's compare some numbers. Let's just talk real quick. Is a positive bigger than a negative number? So is a positive bigger than a negative number? Yes. So a positive number is always bigger than a negative number. All right, so let's think about example A. 5 and -3. Is it less than? Is it equal to? Or is it greater than? So is 5 less than, equal to, or greater than 3? -3, sorry. Hopefully you're saying it's greater than -3. What about -10 and 6? Is -10 less than, equal to, or greater than? -10 should be less than 6, right? Last one, 14 and -2. 14 is greater than -2. All right, hopefully a lot of this is review so far. So example 3 is order the cities on the map from the coldest to the warmest by graphing on the number line. Let's not graph on the number line because there isn't one there. So let's just write them in order from least to greatest over here. Okay. So thinking about these cities, we have Nome, we have Fairbanks, we have Valdez, Anchorage, Juneau, and Kodak. So remember, with negatives, the bigger the number, the smaller it actually is, or the coldest it is. So which one's the coldest city? The coldest city is Fairbanks, because it's got a -27. So Fairbanks is the coldest. Next, the next coldest or the next smallest number is Nome. And then the next one is Anchorage. Does this make sense? It might be helpful to write this. This was negative 27 degrees. This is negative 10 degrees. Negative 5 degrees. What's next? Think about it. Hopefully you said Valdez. Valdez with 8 degrees. That leaves us with 2 more. The next one should be Kodiak with 10 degrees. And the last one is Juneau with 11 degrees. All right. So I want you to do example 4 and example 5 by yourself. So I'm going to ask you to pause this video, and I want you to try example 4 and example 5 by yourself. When you're done those, unpause the video. All right, so here are the answers for example 4 and example 5. So hopefully you got those right. Example 4 should be Omaha, Nebraska, because we're looking at the highest temperature, so we don't need this other category at all. Pardon me, so ignore those. And then which is just the largest number? Okay, so Omaha, Nebraska would be that with 32 degrees Fahrenheit. The next one is golf, and they want us to rank the scores from lowest to highest. Okay, so here's their scores. Rank these numbers from lowest to highest. Okay, so we should have Tiger Woods, R. Goosen, Beeson, P. Mickelson, and E. Els. Okay, so let's go to the next page for me. Go to the next page. On this page, we're going to be talking about absolute value. So let's first do a definition. So the absolute value is the distance. So the distance a number is from 0. So it's the distance a number is from 0. Okay, so we're going to use a number line to find the absolute value of negative 8. So we know negative 8's here. How far away is it from 0? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 8 away from 0. So the absolute value of negative 8 is 8. Okay. Let's look at example 2. I want you to try A for me. So pause real quick and find the absolute value of 7. Hopefully you found that the absolute value of 7 is 7. Okay. But look at B. B's a little different. There's an extra sign out here. We ignore that until we find the absolute value first. So we have to find the absolute value of negative 10, and then we can focus on that sign out front. So what is the absolute value of negative 10? Negative 10's here. What's the absolute value? Hopefully you said 10. And then this negative sign gets brought down. So B is really negative 10. So if there's a minus sign out front, it gets brought down. Now our answer is negative 10. All right, so let's start comparing absolute values. You can use those number lines if you find them helpful. If you don't, that's fine. Okay, so let's compare some numbers. So the absolute value of 5. So 5 is here. How far away is it from 0? It's 5 away. The absolute value of negative 3. How far away is negative 3 from 0? It's 3. So what's bigger, 5 or 3? Hopefully you said 5 is greater than 3. Right? Because we want to compare them using those signs. Okay? All right, so these are negative 10 and 10. So negative 10, the absolute value is 10. 10 is 10 away from 0. So we're comparing 10 and 10. So in this case, those numbers are equal. They're equal. Now let's look at C. C, we're comparing 4 and negative 9. 4 doesn't have an absolute value bar, and that's okay. We can compare numbers with or without absolute value bars. Okay, but let's focus on negative 9 first. So negative 9's here. It's how far away from 0? 9. And I'm just going to bring that 4 down. So between 4 and 9, which number's bigger? 9 is larger. So our inequality sign should be facing that way. All right. I want you to pause your video and try all of example 4. So I want you to do A, B, and C for example 4. So I want you to do all 3 of those. Hopefully you got the same answers. 33 is bigger. B is also greater than. C would be less than. Let's talk about B real quick. Hopefully you got what I did, because remember, there's this sign out front. And what happens with that sign is it gets brought down. So even though the absolute value of 18 is 18, there's that negative sign that gets brought down to make it a negative 18. So let's talk about adding absolute value signs. So when we add absolute value signs, we have to find what the absolute value of each thing is individually. Okay? So the absolute value of negative 2 is 2. And the absolute value of negative 6 is 6. So to find the value, we would put it on the number line. And we have 2. And then from 2, we're adding 6. So where does that put us? That puts us at 8. All right. Last thing we're going to talk about is ordering the values from least to greatest. Okay. So I see some absolute value signs. So let's evaluate those. What's the absolute value of negative 1? That's 1. What's the absolute value of 4? Is 4. Now let's put them from least to greatest. So what's the least largest number? That's negative 2. What's the second least largest number? That should be 0. All right. Then the next one should be the absolute value of negative 1. Because remember, that's equal to 1. And then it should be the absolute value of 4. And last thing should be number 5. All right, so now that you've watched this video, I want you to complete these 2 homework problems. Okay, so those are due the next day in class after you watch this video. All right.